UK-born Nigel Prince left Birmingham, England to take on a challenging job as the executive director of Vancouver's Contemporary Art Gallery, fondly known as the CAG. Prince has launched many Canadian artists onto an international platform, and it is my pleasure to welcome Nigel Prince to Studio 4 to tell us more. How different is this from your last job? Your last job was at Icon in Birmingham?
That's right. I was the curator there. Icon is a much bigger organisation, more gallery space, around 30 staff. Here, on a different scale.
Right.
But I'm the director, so it's an opportunity to lead an organisation rather than be part of a team whereby you're referring to a director. So.
And Canadian art.
Yes.
Canadian artists.
Yeah.
When you first introduced the Canadian artists, and why did they bite you?
Well, I first came to Canada in 2000. I had a research grant through the High Commission in London. I was with maybe about half a dozen other people, and arrived in Montreal and worked our way westwards, and arrived in Vancouver, and along the way met a lot of people in museums, galleries, artists, and really the whole point of that trip was, I think there was a perception that there were certain very well-known artists who were out there internationally, but there was a younger generation who, for whatever reason, were not really being able to be seen outside of the country. And so the things I saw on that trip, people I met, artists I became, slowly developed friendships and relationships with, that was the thing that really sparked my interest. And from that point onwards, I was visiting Canada then almost every two and a half years, and started to make a number of exhibitions back in Europe with contemporary artists. More from Vancouver than any other part of Canada, but also was visiting Toronto and Montreal, places like that.
So to launch a Vancouver contemporary artist like a Roy Arden, or a Ron Terada, or
Stephen
Shearer,
who's Canadian representative at Venice Biennale this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about Stephen Shearer.
Well, I first met Stephen probably around 2006, I think it was, and made a number of studio visits with him then. Sort of hung out when I was in town, and there was something about his work that was very compelling. It comes from a very sort of genuine place, to where he grew up in New Westminster, to do with the things that he was interested in, kind of rock music and that kind of thing. But it was the way he went about making work, paintings, drawings, these archive pieces, which are these assemblages of
we
photos.
saw one. We saw one of the assemblages, as you call it. Was that the one that was in the Tate, or is in the Tate? Is there one in the Tate?
He had a show in a window display at the Tate.
Okay.
I forget the
exact. So it's not
date.
this one. If you look at the monitor.
No, that's not at Tate. No, that's a much later piece.
Okay.
From a couple of years ago. The smaller scale work, a smaller scale version of that in copper was made about so big.
Right.
But there was something very compelling about his work. Very genuine place, and there were sort of similarities. I kind of grew up listening to rock music as well, so you sort of had, you have those kind of things in common, and the relationship developed from there, whereby we made the show back in 2007, I think it was now.
How interesting! All the many influences, but apparently you can sing.
I can sing, according to Kevin Griffin. Yes.
In the paper, I was reading the article in the paper about the 40th anniversary of the Contemporary Art Gallery,
Yes.
And he said something like, "It's very cheeky for an executive director from a contemporary gallery to sing."
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite sang. I probably sort of went la 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 la, something
la,
like
la,
that. No, I was talking about forthcoming projects with artists. And I think the person I was talking about then is Susan Phillips. She lives in Berlin, but she's from Ireland, and we'll be working with her in 2013. But she's known. She won the Turner Prize recently. the Turn Prize is one of the
prestigious prize.
One of the major arts.
And
arts
often
prizes.
very edgy artist wins the Turner Prize, right?
Very can be the case, yes. And Susan's work is all her. She sings songs, so it's all her own voice. These very kind of plaintive, and it's about the way a song can sort of take you into a different realm. It evokes all sorts of memories. You remember when you first heard the song, or there's something about the tone or the timbre that transports you in some sort of way. So her work is very much about that, and the work, often the pieces are not inside of art galleries, but are placed out in the city. So you will happen upon this piece, and often the song will have a relationship to the site, to the location in which it's presented and displayed.
I was at the Martin Creed show at the Rennie Gallery, and Martin Creed was here, and we had a nice chat.
Yeah, good
and
friend
as you know, good friend, because he's a musician and he's an artist and has a wide brain.
Yes, yes. Now, Martin and I have known each other for a long time.
Really?
We've worked together in the past. I commissioned him for a piece when I was at Icon, which is a choral piece in the lift, the public lift.
Right.
So very simply, it relates to the bottom of the bass note, the lowest note in the bass voice register, equates to the bottom of the building, and the top of the building equates to the highest note of a soprano. So the bass, tenor, alto, and soprano come in and out as the lift goes up and down.
Well, we do have the ups and downs in life, so I'll think about that next time I'm on an elevator, maybe sing a song. How did you get into art?
I studied at university. I studied as an artist. I took BA, graduate, and then a postgraduate, a master's in fine art. So for many years, I worked as an artist. Was exhibiting, working on commissions, etc., etc. And slowly the balance shifted. I started to become much more involved in critical writing for magazines in London and New York.
Writing for catalogs, exhibition catalogs.
Exactly so. Working in artist-run spaces to help organize exhibitions, and also teaching in art schools. So very simply, I started to think more about other people's work than my own work.
I see, but do you still paint?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No,
Gave it up?
Yes, yeah.
Not that you didn't sell anything.
No.
No, but you just gave it up and went in a different direction, and how grateful we are to have you here in Vancouver. Plans for the Contemporary Art Gallery, your stamp, the Prince stamp on the CAG.
Well, there's a job to be done to raise our profile in the city and nationally and elsewhere. I arrive at the CAG with a very strong basis, foundation from which to work, but there's a lot to do with raising awareness, raising the profile.
And money? Well, it's funded. Tell me how it's funded, the Contemporary Art Gallery.
We receive federal, provincial, and city funds, and that makes up around about 35% of our overall turnover annually. So we need to raise the rest through donations, trusts, foundations, and that's a lot of work, as you can imagine.
It's such a jewel in our city, and so many people don't know about it. They drive by Nelson, and it's Nelson and Burrard.
Nelson and Richards.
Nelson and Richards, sorry. Nelson and Richards, and wonder what it is, but don't go in.
And importantly, we're free. We're the only free, independent public gallery in the city.
Good.
Free is very good.
Yes. So, tell me about Thomas Bewick.
Thomas Bewick.
Bewick.
Yeah, Thomas Bewick. It's one of the
spelled B-E-W-I-C-K. Buick, like the car.
Yes.
Spelled B-E-W. Okay, Bewick. Thomas Bewick. Don't know him.
18th century British wood engraver.
Maybe that's why.
Yes. So we're challenging ideas of what contemporary might be.
Oh.
18th century wood engraver, perhaps one of the sort of fathers of wood engraving, if you like. They're tiny pieces, about as big as my thumb.
Right.
Small vignettes, which are moral tales. They're sort of social critiques of the time. But it's really one of the reasons for presenting him here in Vancouver is because they are so contemporary in the message that they put across.
Well, he's a bit of a naturalist, it seems.
Very much so.
Looked like, perhaps.
Yes, very much so. Grew up in the northeast of England, had a strong love for the countryside, was dismayed at the way that we treat one another treat the natural world, animals and the environment.
Right.
And so these vignettes are small moral tales that, in a sense, provide some kind of witty, humorous, morbid, satirical comment on the things that he was observing. And they're issues that, you know, haven't gone away.
Haven't gone away and continue to come up.
Very much so.
Before climate change.
Yeah, very
Or maybe
true.
not. The woman from, is it Costa Rica? The artist from the Costa Rican art, or man, he's Federico Herrero.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
Well, Federico's a young artist, starting to emerge internationally. We first met each other in London, I think it was.
Right.
Makes abstract paintings, but he's perhaps best known for working outside of gallery spaces, for working out there in the city. So one of the strands that I'm really interested in amplifying much more at the Contemporary Art Gallery is using the facade of the building, using our windows. We have these street-on windows.
Right.
So that, in a sense, that becomes a membrane to connect the outside to the inside. I'm a firm believer in the importance and the significance of art, but at the same time that it should be accessible and that it can provide all sorts of interest for people from very specialist backgrounds through to the curious bypasser.
Sure, so it's a new commission in a sense.
Complete new commission. The whole front of the building, this large-scale abstract piece using coloured vinyl, rather like Matisse.
Right,
Matisse
little
was
cutouts.
The cutouts, yeah. So it become these big blocks of colour, and
Can't wait.
It looks fantastic.
Is it up?
It's up. Yeah.
Oh, it's up.
Yeah, he completed it on Thursday of last week. He was here for 10 days, working away across the building, you know, on a cherry picker, installing the blocks of colour.
I'll have to drive by after
Please
I'm
do.
finished here. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
and come in too, of
Yes,
course.
indeed.
Sister Carita Kent, pop artist.
Yes.
In Judy, Chicago. When was that? What days are we?
Chicago, Judy Chicago?
Yeah, Judy, Chicago.
She was
but
kind of 70s, 80s.
She was 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is this related?
Well, Carita
Sister
was...
Carita?
Yeah, Sister Carita was... she was a nun down in LA.
Not like Judy Chicago.
Not like Judy Chicago
No.
at all. down in LA, at a place, the Immaculate Heart College. And she ran a series of screen printing workshops. It initiated lecture programs that were incredibly avant-garde. They were the sort of cultural who's who. People like Charles and Ray Eames, the furniture and product designers, Buckminster Fuller, John Cage, Saul Bass. You know, it's an incredible roster of people who she was making contact with.
And who admired her.
Yes,
Obviously, big.
Very much. And she ran a series of screen printing workshops, was really getting the community in, teaching art lessons. And she was, in part, stemming from her sort of spiritual beliefs, but she really believed in the idea of the creativity within all of us and ways to draw that out. And as with many other sort of cultural figures in the 60s, as that decade progressed, became more and more involved in activism. So her work shifts during that decade that we have on display at the gallery, from very early pieces, which are much more abstract and muted in tone, through to the pieces as you just showed.
With the text.
With the text, taking information from the street signage, from pop lyrics of the time.
Right.
And then by the end of the decade, using imagery from like Newsweek and Life magazine to do with the civil rights movement, Kennedy assassinations, Martin Luther King, all of those sort of Vietnam War, all of those kind of burning issues of the day.
Oh, I would have loved to have known her.
Yeah, she's incredible. We showed a couple of films that were made in the 60s of her teaching at the gallery last week, one evening, and they're these sort of great archive footage of her surrounded by the students going out on marches and processions. I mean, very much the spirit
Holy
of
Mary
the
and the
age.
Sister.
Yes.
Yeah, why not? That sounds fabulous. So the challenge for you here.
Yes. Challenge for me here is to, one, as you've already mentioned, to be able to raise the funds to enable us to make the programs we want to.
Sure.
We're looking to really expand all areas of our operation. That's to do with the exhibitions that we make, to do with the education program, getting more families and children involved in the gallery, expanding our audience, and hence expanding our support base.
Yes, and I like the children concept, bringing the kids into the gallery early.
Growing your audience for the future.